chapters, so how we're perfect than that, especially as the California Arts Council fellowship application is up, and there are a number of other residencies and things to apply to. And whatever you generate in today's generative workshop, I want you to stay true to yourself, be as unique as possible, be authentic. And we're doing a little bit of excavation in terms of really becoming who we are. So I have good news to say. I'm also now a 2026 Macondista. And thank you. And besides being the first woman of color, queer woman of color, poet laureate in the West Hollywood, I'm also the first Asian American lesbian poet laureate in California, right? So these are all interesting things, but it's not that exciting, right? I can just list off the things, and what will you remember? What we remember is story, right? And storytelling is something that we started off as kids in the playground, amongst your siblings, at family affairs. I am trained in improvisation, and I'll give you some of the tools from improv and from screenwriting and from songwriting and all the things that I'm trained in, so that you can make your statement sing out and be memorable. As a judge or a panelist, we go through things and we get bored. And your job is to get out of that boredom that the judge or the panelist is reading. I mean, they're reading dozens, and there have been times where I'm like, how am I ever going to get through 200 in my packet? So your job, how are you going to be memorable? Anybody have an idea? We're going to say, if you can make us laugh. If you can make us laugh, then it's an emotional response from the panelist, the reader. Are you going to use quirky words that only you use, that no one else uses, right? Because I have my Canto Chinglish that I write into some of my artist statement. Maybe you're not multilingual. Maybe you are trained as a painter. Maybe you're trained as a musician. Use all of those assets of who you are to be more and more uniquely you. The more unique you are, the more you stand out as a different color of green or blue, whatever your favorite color is. So today's effort is to say, what are you looking for? I know some of you are applying to California Arts Council. Can you shout out? And people in the chat, will you type in the chat box, and Sochi, you'll tell me, what else are you applying to? And it might not be this year. Maybe you're applying to Hedgebrook next year. Maybe you're applying to whatever else. So anybody want to be brave and say what you're committed to applying this year? And everything we do for the artist statement, guess what? You can steal from your own writing and put it in your bio. A friend of mine, he says he's the last to see the Taco Bell Chihuahua alive. You laughed. It makes him memorable, right? Whether or not that's true, I'm like, is that even true? I don't know, but it made you laugh and remember. What else? Who are you applying to?
Cindy says Napa Valley Writers Conference.
Fantastic.
Hawthorne residency from Kate Maruyama. Chapel contests. Maru is applying to grants and residencies. I know I saw another one. Granum, Yana is applying to Granum Foundation. Lee 2 is applying to residencies for the future, not specific. And Tweety also residencies.
Great. Residencies. Anybody else? Yes.
California Arts Council.
California Arts Council. Anybody else?
Residencies.
Residencies. Anybody else? Tell us what you're applying to for some residencies. Okay. Well, I have a friend who's a judge on residencies, and she says, not only does your artist statement need to tell us who you are, why this residency and why now? Why are they important to you in this moment in your career? So does anyone want to volunteer? Why now? Yes.
For me, it's dedicated time in the house. Distractions.
Yeah.
So that's for me. I'm working on a project that requires
So for one application, I agree with that. That's going to be a lot of people. How are you going to stand out? So for me, I was like, I know nothing about Portland and I see there's a giant mahjong scene developing and I want to immerse myself in a different Chinatown while I'm working on this, Chinese American project. Why now? Why that residency, right? So I was like, okay, I have to tie it to Portland. I didn't get that residency, but it's like, okay, now that was a good exercise in me researching why this residency, and it might not be the residency, it might be like Wyoming has this fantastic, expanse, and I'm writing a cowboy story. It might not be that direct. It could be like, Wyoming has the hauntings of my great grandparents past. So if you could be that specific, then people are like, oh, that's why you're choosing me and not sending me your generic statement. What was your comment?
Oh, it was a little generic, but that I have for me to have a draft of a manuscript done. And like for Hedgebrook, it was about it's about this particular aspect of growing up with a group of peer people in the 90s in this particular place, but yeah.
So you could say like this timing of this residency, it might not be the location. It could be like this timing of this residency is crucial to my research about this portion of my project that needs to be finished by a certain deadline because it's due to my agent or it's due to my manager or it's due to, a certain contest. So when you win the contest, you can thank Hedgebrook for that, right? People want to brag about their alumni. I also won a Ford Foundation fellowship that paid for my public policy degree. And it's like, okay, why you versus anyone else who's applying? You can say, well, this project has this social impact, right? So you want to find what is the impact of your writing. Okay, so that's the big picture. Since we are short on time and we have a lot to cover, I'm going to have you excavate your past. So the first exercise is to find your quirks of who you are. I can say, like, I have one sister who was born a fashionista. She cried when she couldn't find her perfect shirt. Like, that's her quirk. And no wonder she ended up working retail management as an adult. That was who she was as a child. What were you as a child that makes you now the unique writer, poet, voice that you are now? So that's the first question. The second question is, what would your school teachers say about you? The ones who loved you, of course, the supportive, caring ones. What would your school teachers or mentors say about you in your youth? Because there are some things of our youth that are such the core of who you are. I'm trying to help you find your super unique voice. And then as a kid, what made you know you wanted to tell stories? What made you know you were a poet, you were a writer, you were an artist? Was there some pivotal moment in your time? 3 questions. Your quirky self, what a good teacher or mentor would have said about you. And 3, what made you know that you were a story writer? So we're in your youth, we're traveling back in time, 10 minutes, go. No censorship, no revision, just go.
What was the third one?
How did you know you were a storyteller, poet, writer as a youth? So we're in our youth, we're traveling back in time. What makes you uniquely you, and how did you know you were supposed to write? I'm not going to play music because I want you to focus on your own breathing, being grounded in your own body, because the music will change the way you write. quirks you had, what quirks you had. Because my sister would cry when she couldn't find her favorite shirts. She was a fashionista. She grew up to be a retail manager. And then the third one was how you knew a writer, your quirks, and what would your favorite, like a good teacher or mentor say about you? So just quick writing. Give about 5 minutes, keep going. Two minutes. If you forgot the three things, quirks, what a good teacher or mentor say about you as a youth, and why you knew you were an artist or what affected you. How did you want to be a writer as a youth? Or maybe you didn't. wrapping up. Great. I'm sure you have a lot more to say. And these little spurts of generative writing are kind of like your treasure trove. You're like gathering your spices to cook up your artist statement. I am a foodie, so I'm going to give you things like recipes. I can say that like what you have in here, why don't you go and take 30 seconds and underline some super fun phrases or quirky words you might have used, or a compliment your teacher gave you. Underline those. And then see if you're willing to share. We have time for us to share. Anyone online, you want to share your phrase that is so uniquely you, you could put it in the chat. We'll love to hear it through Sochi Broadcasting. All right, we'll start first.
One second. Can I just testing? Can folks hear me? In Zoom?
If not, they can hear it from the room, or I can repeat it.
It's Richoy. You're cutting out, but yes. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's start first with a line you wrote that surprised you, that you weren't expecting to write. Quirky is probably a good prompt, right? Yeah.
And I used to wish I was older so I could wear blazers.
Ooh. What was that about, the blazers?
I don't know, I just love them. I wanted to wear them. It was like
How about now?
10 years old.
Can you hear me?
10 years old wanting to wear a blazer. Was it your mom or somebody who wore a blazer to work and it signified power?
Yeah, I think it's kind of being grown up, you know.
And what was about being grown up that you wanted to be? Like, why did you not want to stay being a kid?
Probably escape.
Yeah. And that actually leads me to a great line that my friend's bio says. She's an escape room addict. Right? So I'm teaching you a game here that says what that means is you wanted to wear a blazer. What that means is blazers signify being an adult. Why did you want to be an adult? What that means is you wanted to be an adult because you wanted to have power. Right? And what that means is you wanted to escape your reality. So that's a fun little improv tool that you can use for your own writing beyond the artist statement, right? If a character is going to want to wear a blazer as a 10-year-old, what that means is they want to go to work with their dad and they're a daddy's girl. I mean, those are two different stories. Or what that means is she saw, you know, Geraldine Ferraro run for vice president and she wanted to be president when she grew up. So the blazer could mean so many things, and that's where you can delight us with your story. Yes.
Oh, in the chat, Tamara Zook says the family business was the weekly Sunday morning church show. There was a stage, music, good props, costumes, community supporting characters, and if dad landed the sermon, a good story.
Yeah. So you learned a good story from the early days of sermon or church. Wherever you might have grown up. Cool. Any other shares for Aurelia?
Very money to secretly see an author that was signing a children's book at my elementary school and not ask my parents for money or get in trouble. And it's because it
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
How cool is that? You used your tooth fairy money. How did you get there?
It was during the school day and I forged the permission slip. They have their financial ups and downs, so I was like, I don't want to cause anything. I don't want to ask for permission. I just need to be there. So I found the money signed, and then I was allowed to leave the class and see the author. And then I got the signed copy of the book, and I filed it away neatly in my bookshelf. And I'm like, they'll never know.
Did they ever find out?
No.
Wow. If they watch this recording, they will.
Now it's out there.
I mean, that is so memorable. What that means is you're so determined, you did not want anyone saying no to you. What that means was you had so much passion that you're like, other people would spend their tooth fairy money on toys or clothes or something, but like you chose to go to an author. Like that tells me everything. Like you knew early on you loved stories. Yeah. So yes, please play with that. Who else has a very memorable story of their childhood, how they knew they were an author or a quirky thing? Yes.
I don't think this has anything to do with being an author, but it does have to do with my work. But I was a snoop, and my parents were always leaving me alone or with babysitters, and I found dirty letters from my dad, and I found crotchless panties when I was little. I was very obsessed with my parents' sex life.
So I don't know who you are. Tell us your name.
Tony Ann Johnson. I write about my family. I've published 3 books about my family.
So as someone who doesn't know who you are, just looking at what you're wearing, and when you said you were a snoop, I'm like, that tracks. The detective hat. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Snooping in the bedroom. From that story, what that means is you could be an excellent, romance author. You could be an excellent mystery thriller author. And you led me to family drama, but
Also had condoms, and my mother had an IUD.
wow.
So we should have been
They were extra not wanting more children.
They were for other people. Not my mom.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So I write about family drama in this book.
Great. So that actually leads us to the second exercise. Great segue. What you just said were themes that you write about. So this is now present time, adult, right? So we're in present. Themes that you obsess about, right? So I was a little detective too. And I called myself an a couch psychiatrist or observer, right? Like I observed all the siblings. I'm like, what's happening? And so I got all their personalities down. So if you're an observer, like you were a keen observer as a child or a keen observer now, this is why I write detective stories, right? I was like, why do people do what they do? So in the present, some of us have problems being proud of yourself and praising yourself. So if that's a struggle, then your exercise is, what does your best friend or somebody you talk to often, it could be a mentor, it could be a teacher, your editor, what does this close person say about you? What do you write about? What do they say you write about? And then find words that are much more you, right? So there's plenty of Chinese Americans who write about Chinese American culture. There's plenty of people who write about family drama, but what makes your family drama uniquely yours? So if you have trouble figuring that out, that's why you question your best friend or your therapist or your editor, who sometimes acts as your therapist, and figure out what themes you write about. And if you really don't know, you can look at what you read. The authors you read, how do people describe their work? So people could talk about ancestors, They write about ghosts, they write about ancestors. Which specific authors do you read? And perhaps you can borrow words from their bio that could inform your words of how you write your themes. And here's a little trick. You can put two words together that you don't necessarily see together. So word A and word B. And don't edit yourself. So this is your musing. Why are we talking about this? Because I am reading off of the California Arts Council grant, the fellowship application. And these are their words. Provide a brief history of your artistic career, snooze. What are your influences? Who are you reading, right? And they could be like film directors. So I will say like the Hong Kong cinematic director Wong Kar-wai influences how I write. So they could be musicians. You could say like, Enya has affected you. What is your style? How does it shape your artistic work? The way you explore creative practice. So some people need to light a candle before they start writing. Some people need that hot cup of coffee before they can write. So this is your artistic practice, which sometimes is parsed out, but sometimes is buried inside your artistic statement. Be as descriptive as possible and give me a story, right? That story like, oh, that escape room with my bestie and we failed and we gave up taught me this about myself. And these are the themes I write about now. So give me that story. 10 minutes. Themes, influences. You have 1 minute left, wrap it up. And if you are stuck, keep finding quirky things about you that people talk about. All right. I hope you had fun looking for your themes. I have to say thank you to the California Arts Council for having funded the first edition of this book. I got to license this from a muralist who I follow on Instagram. It's from a giant building, and I zoomed in and found this little snapshot. And when I chose this book cover, I was like, what am I trying to say with my book cover? And she's an activist. She has a voice. A lot of us Asian American women are expected to be quiet and not be expressive. So I really wanted this to be like any woman, any girl can have a voice. I wanted to show some of her more exotic, more ethnic parts of her outfit. So I wanted to make sure there was a braid, because my book is called Braided Spaces. So, and I wanted it to be super colorful. So when you give people an artist statement, you're basically giving them your book cover, right? And like, you got to give it to them quick. And they can feel however they feel, but it's got to be memorable. And at the beginning of this workshop, for those of you who walked in a little late, we said, what makes a memorable statement is if someone can like chuckle or relate to it, you know, find something that they can connect to. Like we all connected with Tooth Fairy because it's part of the American culture ethos that we know about Tooth Fairy. Would that story fly in a culture that doesn't have Tooth Fairy? Maybe, because we like magic of, you know, a kid spending their pocket money on something, even if they didn't understand what Tooth Fairy was. So you don't need to know that this was a mural at an Asian American culture student center. But the fact that there's all this happening, you're like, okay, this is not going to be a simple book. There's definitely a lot going on in this book. So anybody want to share like what themes and influences you can tell an artist statement? Share in your artist statement. Perhaps somebody who hasn't shared before, just to popcorn around the room. Yes,
I'm gonna try using this mic. I think it should work like that.
I forgot to clip myself back in.
I'm on a mic. Does this work?
I think so. Try.
Is it for the Zoom? Like
Yeah,
yeah, okay. Okay, so one of several themes.
Tell us your name.
Lila.
Lila.
So one of several themes is inheritance, like the push and pull, like the kind of charm of it, and me being drawn to my family history, and then like my like desperate need to lose that identity and become something else, something new. And I have a few stories. I'll pick one. Do you want an example or
Yeah, tell
some
us
sort of story?
I mean, find something, underline a line or something that you want us to respond to.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess from the last section I wrote,
We're trying
Um,
to stay in the present. We're still talking about
No, I
things.
know.
Yeah,
The
okay.
present.
Yeah.
Okay. I went deep into the past. I don't have a
A
present
present. Okay.
moment. It's more like
Yeah.
working with the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like what you said about inheritance. Now, your inheritance might be different than anybody else at your table or in this room. So this is where I challenge you to give me 2 words, right? So inheritance could be in B, and maybe you can give it a memorable word that is distinctly yours, that you can say, I don't know where you grew up, right? Like maybe you could say Oklahoma inheritance. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's definitely not California. Or you could say, ranch, like the rancheros,
Mhm.
whatever your family inheritance could be.
Yeah.
Like I worked with an author whose family came from Michoacan, and they were ranchers, but here he is selling real estate in glitzy Beverly Hills. That's a very different identity, right? So he carved his own individual inheritance, in his individual identity, but drawing on the inheritance that his grandfather was like a leader in his town, and therefore he wants to be a leader in this town. So parsing out, can you say, fill this in perhaps with a quirky word from exercise A that would inform what kind of inheritance, and then finding individuality, right? So that goes for everyone, not just your comment. So yeah, finding blank inheritance, something individuality. Yep.
From online, Lee Tu said thwarted desire, injustice and justice, predation. Did I say that word right? Predation and victimization, alienation. I write about people who live in a choose your own adventure book where every ending is the bad ending.
Ooh, see, that got a reaction from the room. Every ending is a bad ending. I love that. That makes it memorable. The earlier words started to feel like a list. So I would encourage maybe the strategy of sticking an unexpected word in front of alienation, right? I'm like, well, what kind of alienation? Is it like alienation from the cheerleader squad? So, alienation from the peers, or alienation from one's marriage. Those are completely 2 different kinds of alienation. So just digging in for more detail, being more precise. Third person who's willing to share, online or in person. Yes, go ahead. Yes. Tell us your name and
Yeah, I'm Lisa Chibi. I kind of leaned into the part about influences.
Yeah.
And I really got a lot. Like that was unexpected. So that was a great prompt. Thank you. I wrote about jazz in the sense of improvisation, and like this idea of like you're constrained, you're using chords, you're using notes, time and space, and equating that to like, what came out of that is a lot of my books are kind of from constrained vocabularies. Like I have 2 books from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, another one about planets, and how my process often entails like researching and collecting these this sort of like vocabulary, and then really pushing the edges of the pages, and the same way like in jazz does that, like you're constrained by the page but you are pushing those boundaries. So I found that really helpful for me, and then that also led into like some of my mentors, Douglas Kearney and Jenny Factor, and how they also like kind of taught me like Jenny's kind of romance with language and precision with language, and Doug's sort of experimental work on the page, and how that also amplified that and connected to that. So that was really useful.
Great.
Thank you.
I love that you bring up music, because here's a recipe. A recipe from a master chef that I hung out with in New York is that you want that chord. In order to have a chord, you need to have a low note, you need to have a middle note, you need to have a high note. So the low note is the groundedness of the flavor of, your stew or your soup or your salad, right? That's like the onions, the garlic. We need that groundedness. So research is the groundedness. The middle, that could be your training. You're talking about your mentors, right? That gives it the major, minor, dissonant, consonant tones. The high notes are what give it the sparkle. So the sparkle could be herbs like fresh basil, or it could be cardamom. Persian food has rose water that Chinese food doesn't have. Chinese food has, different kinds of spice profiles. So if you can make your themes come in threes, the groundedness of whatever kind of research you do, the interrogation of the themes that you think about, and that high note is that sparkle, right? That's the memorable top note, that is the melody line. And that's where you're like, oh, that's where we get the chuckles, we get the laughs, we get the magic. And with that, you're going to remember me because I brought you Thai basil, and I have mint that is cut, but there are mints with roots here. So yes, these kinds of things help people remember you. I'm a plant parent. Beyond being a foodie, I'm also a plant parent who has basil and mint to give away. Right? That's the sparkle. So that's the thing you want to add into your themes. All right, it's 11 o'clock, and I want to make sure we get to our third exercise. The third exercise has everything to do with the impact question that most fellowships and residencies ask for, right? Like, after this fellowship, after this residency, how can we brag about you? They don't say it that way. They're like, what's your community impact? That's what the California Arts Council thing asks. So I'm going to ask you to time travel into the future. 3 or 5 years from now, in this new chapter, as we celebrate the new moon today, how can you write a letter to your current self? Your future self writes a letter to your current self and say, wow, what a journey you've been. You got this book landed with X publisher, or you got this story sold to a screenplay production company, whatever it is that you want for the life, or you have the 5th book in your series of this story you already took care of. So your future self, and again, if you have trouble praising yourself, make it your manager who roots for you well, your editor or your mentor who roots for you well. Have them praise you now. Like, what is your trajectory that you can imagine in your dream world, no limitations, 3 to 5 years from now? Be proud of yourself, of what your impact, your journey has been in the last 3 to 5 years. The community, like, what has your writing done for the world, right? Judy Blume made it that it was okay to talk about women's periods. Beverly clearly made it okay that Ramona the pest was something we could talk about. You didn't have to be a good girl. Sometimes you got in trouble and you didn't have to feel shameful. Sometimes you were just earnestly curious and then you got in trouble. So what is the impact that your writing, your work has done? And we'll make it 9 minutes so that we have time for discussion. You have about a minute. We'll call on someone online first. If you have a line or something you want to share, like what is your future self writing about your impact, your community impact of your writing, your artist's vision? And people in person, you can underline phrases that are unusual, that are quirky, that are uniquely your voice. No one? All right, no one online is ready. Let's pick someone from the room. Who's willing to share your community impact? Who said they were applying to California Arts Council? You're on the spot.
Okay.
You have to answer for your application anyway. We're here to help you.
You know, I didn't. Okay.
We're
Okay.
we're here to help you.
Okay. All right. So, gosh, I was all over the place. I one of the things I thought was, oh, my book has been translated into 20 different languages.
Yes. Cheer that on. Yes. And what does that mean for you? Answer that question. When it's translated to 20 languages, what does that mean? And tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay, what that means basically is that what I'm writing about is a universal issue for many, many families. I'm dealing with someone who has a loved one that is suffering from mental illness, and how it has to go from shunning and silencing to addressing it and embracing that difference and helping that person along when they want it. And so my book is about my brother who suffered from bipolar and schizophrenia and ultimately died on the streets because he refused help from the family. And so that was so heartbreaking for us. And so for me to channel my grief and to get past it, as I began writing poems and stories about just what he was going through. And then I discovered what began happening is that people on the street who were having those issues, I was like a magnet to them. They started coming to me or single me out and would ask me for things. You know,
they wanted help from a stranger.
Yes.
Yes. But they knew that they could relate to you.
I guess so. It was the strangest thing. People would come and say, well, could you buy me this in the store? And I didn't see them as strangers. I saw my brother.
Yes.
Whether it was a woman, whether it was a man, whoever, a child, young person, you know, asking for money on the streets. And I saw their humanity and I saw my brother. So I like to think that I'm paying it forward in some small way, but I do believe that the work that I'm doing will have impact. If it helps one person to relate differently to their loved one or to help them, then I feel like my book has achieved something.
Fantastic. I love that mission. Congratulations on that vision. So I want to find something snappy that we can do it in one sentence, like Judy Blume made it okay for us to talk about girls and having periods. So, tell us your name. Angela Franklin made it okay for people to learn to ask for help or whatever. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to put it in that format. Judy Blume made it okay for girls and families to talk about periods.
So
Angela Franklin
made it okay for families. My audience in particular is the Black community. because oh, sorry. Okay, so the Black community doesn't too much, it's getting better now, discuss mental health issues. And so my book will make it okay for families to start speaking openly about it. And it's not one of those things where the information is hidden or no one discusses it. Oh yeah, well, we always knew Aunt Shirley was touched, but everyone just acted like it was no big deal.
So Angela Franklin made it okay for Black families or all families, you
All
decide,
families.
for
Yeah.
families to talk about mental health troubles and to seek help. That's your impact statement.
Because I think NAMI does it where they offer classes and things to help families address their loved ones.
Yeah.
It's like
NAMI's a great organization.
Yeah, but we couldn't even get our brother to that point.
Right. So perhaps beyond that, you're impacting that another Angela, a younger version, a different version of Angela, somebody else like you, survivors of family members who needed help feel more empowered to reach out and help others or get help themselves. Those are all rough drafts. So we got one more from the online, and then we have to wrap because I have to get out of here to the next thing.
Anne Tweety Online shared, Anne made it okay to talk about difficult relationships with one's kids. Oh,
Great.
and Gail said, Gail made it okay for child sexual abuse survivors to talk about their abuse and begin to heal.
Wonderful. So this is just a super simple math statement. You know, Judy Bloom made it okay to talk about menstrual periods, right? Make that more you. Don't use my words. That was just like fill in the blank, kind of a Mad Libs to get you going. I want you to stay true to your words. When you send your stuff to an editor or a friend, and they might eliminate something, one editing happened to me where I was writing a book review and I said something, indelible impressions. I like the word indelible. My editor sent it back to me and erased my word indelible, put in some basic words that were not me. And I was like, nah, I'm going to put back indelible. So I want you all to leave here empowered to stick to your unique words that are your voice, that are not your editors, not your friends wiping it out and giving you a basic word. I'm a foodie who's also a plant parent who gives away mint and basil. That's my brand. Angela, you got your brand of mental health conversation that nobody else has. So I want you to stay super empowered to your quirky words and don't let anyone take that out of your statement. And in fact, those are your magic spices, the sprinkle, the fairy dust that helps people remember who you are. I want to encourage you to talk to each other, find each other as editors to help your artistic statement get edited. The generative writing process for me is just like the start. We had about an hour today, and then it takes like 8, 9, 10, 12 hours to edit and refine. So just be real, give it to different friends. Don't rely on only one editor. Sometimes I give it to 3 editors. Some editors are not good at personal statements. They might be great for poetry, but not great for personal statements. So find who's resourceful in whatever way that best serves you. Good luck, and thank you for sharing this time with me.
Thank you, Jen.